After I had my son, I learned pretty quickly that I would not have many children. My son was one of those babies. Those babies you couldn't take anywhere but grandma's house. Grandma knew how to console a crying baby, but no one else had the magic touch. He often cried for no apparent reason. He was dry and well-fed, which I thought was all we needed to visit friends. But once we arrived, he just wouldn't stop crying. His crying led to a protruding navel. I was so worried about him getting a hernia and eventually needing surgery, which I heard was very common. So I spoke to my mother, who told me that her mother, my grandmother, told her to tape a silver dollar to the baby's navel, and it would keep it from becoming a hernia. I must say that this actually worked. Since the crying wouldn't stop, I needed something to prevent surgery. Historically, Black families have unconventional remedies to many ailments. Ask any Black family member how to cure a common cold or a skin rash. You would be given specific instructions on what herbs to mix or what to include in your hot tea to cure just about anything. In fact, there is a book of African American methods to cure just about anything dating back to slavery. Yes, these remedies go back to slavery. Home remedies were a form of medical treatment back then. And to this date, we use many of those remedies to cure non-threatening illnesses. But there is one thing you won't find in those books or in any recipe passed down through Black families. That is a cure for mental health-related concerns. A silver dollar won't cure suicidal ideation. There isn't a mixture of herbs to prevent depression or hopelessness. Suicide is an epidemic in the Black community. Black youth suicide is at an all-time high, exceeding white children. In fact, in a recent study conducted by Jeffrey Bridge and colleagues out of Ohio State University, found that Black children, ages 5 to 12, suicide rates were double the rate of white children similar in age. Yes, I said ages 5 to 12. In fact, boys are more commonly found among this age group. A similar study found that LGBT youth of color were more likely to attempt suicide than straight youth. It has also been proven that girls make attempts at suicide twice as often as boys. Girls attempt suicide that requires medical attention more than boys as well. However, boys were found to be more successful on their first suicide attempt, while girls are more successful after multiple attempts. In addition, girls are 3 times more likely to self-harm than boys. In fact, Black girls are more likely to self-harm than their white counterparts. Researchers contend that low-income communities have far more of a prevalence of self-harming youth. Our Black and brown babies are dying because the pain they feel inside is so unbearable that they feel death is the only alternative. They are experiencing feelings of hopelessness and entrapment, and through their eyes, there is no way out. You won't find a remedy for this in any Black family or community. How can we save our children? How can we change the Black suicide narrative? It is my belief that the answer is in our history of unconventional methods. We can learn something from our cultural approach to healing. We need similar unconventional methods to reduce suicide rates among Black children. Taking a more culturally focused approach would address this epidemic, build community, and demystify stigmas associated with mental health. A culturally appropriate approach would involve training Black parents to be gatekeepers, the frontline intervention to suicidal ideation among Black children. Throughout history, Black families have dealt with issues and passed down the wisdom generation to generation. It is common knowledge that Black families have been marginalized which has caused a lack of confidence in many systematic approaches to issues within the family unit. Researchers have constantly affirmed, with empirical support, that African Americans on average do not attend counseling or traditional methods of addressing mental health. So the education of parents is a more culturally appropriate way to address Black youth suicide. Equipping parents with all the tools given to gatekeepers, trained to recognize factors that lead to suicide and provide proper interventions, would give them the tools needed to end this epidemic. Proper training would include teaching parents to assess suicidal ideation, giving them the knowledge to seek appropriate interventions, and demystifying any stigma associated with traditional interventions. Focused parent trainings are needed to provide early intervention and treatment. It can also lead to the transferring of information throughout the family unit for generations to come. Parental education can save the lives of Black children. Black families have a lack of trust in systematic traditional approaches to mental health. Researchers have contended that there is a shortage of Black or African American therapists in the field, and that counselors of other races are not seen as culturally competent enough to address the challenges of Black families. In addition, those that have received treatment have reported issues of microaggression and racism from their therapists. These barriers to treatment, along with existing access to treatment barriers as a result of insurance stipulations, permeate the lack of trust in systematic approaches to mental health within the Black community. In addition, access to mental health barriers increase considerably for LGBT youth of color, who often experience homelessness, rejection, and identity-related challenges. Educating parents to recognize and respond to suicidal ideation in a culturally appropriate way is not only the answer to lowering youth suicide rates, but will also lead to building a sense of community. The empowerment of Black parents to act early in addressing mental health challenges within their families would strengthen the Black community. Education that is normally given to professional gatekeepers can provide Black parents with clear understanding of the therapeutic process, which could lead to saving the lives of countless Black children. I know what you're thinking. Intervention should be left up to the professionals and experts. However, this approach is just not working within the Black community. The youth suicide rates are rapidly increasing, and Black parents have been at the forefront of change within the Black community. Black parents should be experts on the needs of their family members, and gatekeeper education could empower them to take on the expert role and seek the proper interventions needed to save their loved one. This approach could put an end to suicide among youth in the Black community. Madison White said, Jamel Miles, Jasia Williams, Imani McCrae, all beautiful Black children under the age of 10 who died by suicide within the last year. It is time for us to take action. If you are a provider of suicide-focused gatekeeper training, this message is for you. Consider offering your specialized trainings to parents in urban communities. Utilize community centers, churches, and community-engaged nonprofit agencies as host sites for parent trainings. Providing your services in this manner will begin to equip parents with the tools they need to strengthen their families and local community. If you are a counselor, consider holding training in urban areas focused on explaining the treatment options for suicidal ideation and how you approach treatment. This type of training will begin to demystify treatment for suicidal ideation and equip parents with the knowledge that could save the lives of countless Black youth. If you are a parent, it is time for you to take action. Research local trainings in your area that focus on mental health and suicide. Ask the organizers if you can join the training or if they would be willing to offer a similar one in your local community. Now is the time for Black families to break through the stigma of mental illness. We need a remedy just like the silver dollar that prevented a hernia. Black parents are that silver dollar. It is time to take the lead role in lowering the rates of Black youth suicide. Thank you.